I'm going to just ask for apologies for absence. So I think we've got Alistair Neil and Councillor Garrett. Is there anybody else? Oh, Maria Stevens is being substituted by Councillor Peter Strong. Any other apologies for absence? No?
Chair, I believe Marion Howes had given his apologies as well.
Okay. Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Or should we take that as and when? Yeah, everybody happy with that? Okay. We haven't got anybody for the public open forum. So without sort of further ado, shall we just introduce ourselves? I'm going to start with the people online first. So can I go to and can you say whether you're on the People Scrutiny Committee or the performance and overview? Sorry. So I'm a bit rusty. Okay, so I'm going to go sort of clockwise. So can I ask Councillor Strong to introduce himself?
Yeah, Peter Strong, member of the Performance and Overview Committee, but also deputising for Maria Stevens on People.
Thank you. Councillor Jones?
Hello, I'm Councillor Penny Jones and I'm on the People Scrutiny Committee.
Councillor Newell?
Thank you. Councillor Martin Newell, Monmouth Town Ward, and I am on the Performance Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Pavia?
Morning everyone, Councillor Paul Pavia, elected member for Mount Pleasant and Chepstow, and I'm on the Performance and Overview Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bond?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Councillor Bond, Gillian Bond, representing people from West End Ward, Caldecott, and I'm on the Performance and Overview Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Powell?
Thank you, Councillor Maureen Powell, Councillor for Castle Ward in Abergavenny, and a member of the People Scrutiny Committee.
That's lovely, thank you. Councillor Howarth?
Morning, Chair. Morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Councillor Howarth, People's Scrutiny Select Committee, represent Gilwan, Clydach and Llanelli Hill.
Okay, and then I'll start with and then I'll go on to people in the chamber. So, Councillor Edwards.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Christopher Edwards for St Kingsmark Ward in Chepstow, and I'm on the People's Scrutiny Committee.
Councillor Butler.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Butler. I'm County Councillor for Goitrevara, and I'm on People's Scrutiny. Thank you.
Councillor Grauket.
Good morning, Borodar. Martin Grokert. I'm a member of the People Scrutiny Committee and Vice Chair of the County Council. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so I go to the officers in front of me. So shall we start on my left? Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Sonia Morgan, Elective Home Education Support Officer.
Borodar, Sharon Randall-Smith, Head of Service for Monmouthshire, School Improvement, Achievement and Attainment.
Good morning, Suzanne Challenger, Education Welfare Officer for the Abergavenny Cluster and CME Officer.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, I'm Sue Riley. I represent Bulwark and Thornwell Ward and I am Vice Chair of People Scrutiny Committee. Thank you.
Hi, good morning everyone. I'm County Councillor Jackie Strong. I represent Cross Ward in Caldecott and I chair this committee, and I'll just pass across to Hazel.
Hazel Eilert, Scrutiny Team.
Okay, so thank you everyone. I don't think I've missed anyone. No? Okay, so we'll now go on to scrutinise the reports we have in front of us. We haven't got to make any decisions today. It's mainly to provide sort of scrutiny and feedback to the Cabinet in relation to these reports. So I gather that there's a short presentation, so I'm going to hand over to Sharon. Thank you very much.
As I said, good morning. We are here to talk to you about elective home education and children missing in education. Within Monmouthshire, those two things link well and the teams work well together. I'm presenting today on behalf of Michelle Keir, who is our EWS team manager, and she's not here. So my colleagues, Suzanne and Sonia, will help with the discussions we have today. So, just to give you some background for elective home education. It's a term that's used to describe parent-carer decisions to provide education for their children at home instead of sending them to school. This is a right that parents and carers have under Section 7 of the Education Act, on the condition that they provide their child with an efficient and suitable education that primarily equips the child for life and doesn't limit the child's options later in life. Home-educated children are not registered at mainstream or special schools. Parents and carers must formally deregister their child or children from education when they are of compulsory school age, and those who are home educated are not required to follow any specified curriculum or meet the criteria for the number of learning hours. By very virtue of the fact it is homeschool education, there is that sense of flexibility. There are no term times, no half terms, and learning can take place at all times. So there are lots of different reasons why parents may choose to electively home educate their children. There are a variety of reasons, and as a local authority, we do try to capture these. However, parents and carers are not required to share this information with us. So, broadly, there are ideological or philosophical views or family views and family lifestyles, health, potentially, cultural, religious beliefs, possibly bullying, maybe barriers to learning, additional learning needs, a language choice, could be length of school journey or difficulties travelling to school. It could be whilst the child is waiting for a place in a school of their choice, or the ability for flexibility and tailoring of an approach. As I said, they don't have to give a reason, but based on the information we gathered across the local authority, we can see that the main reason is family, lifestyle and ideological choices. So we do collect a lot of home education data, but I would have to say it is subject to frequent change as learners return to school, they're deregistered, they move out of the area. It's quite a flexible thing, and it does change on a weekly basis. We usually look at it on a monthly to get a touch point, but it is very volatile. So in 2024-25, some of the things that we've drawn out, which you will see in the report, is that there were more female EHE learners than males. Overall, the number of EHE learners is higher in secondary schools than in our primary schools. The number of EHE learners in years 10 and 11 are higher than in other year groups, and that we've completed 70 new EHE visits and 148 visits in total. Trends in Monmouthshire reflect the trends across Wales, where there has been significant increase in the number of pupils who are EHE. So in the previous year, we had 60. In this reporting year, we had 119, and the current numbers that we have are 183. So it is increasing, but as I say, that's very much in line with the pattern across Wales. So elective home education, as I said earlier, is quite difficult, but we do have a universal offer within Monmouthshire, and that includes things like outdoor activities and enrichment days. We provide learning resources such as book vouchers, resources for learning, pens, pencils, books. Occasionally we will provide vouchers to National Trust or to enrich experiences. We provide support for GCS examinations in as much as we provide a centre for EHE pupils to sit their examinations, and we provide invigilation. We also make sure that post-16 learners have opportunities for access to Careers Wales support, and all learners have face-to-face counselling opportunities, referrals to wider agencies. We provide advice and support from Inspire to Achieve, and parent Welsh language courses and signposting to suitable education websites that we have looked at ourselves and confirmed they're appropriate. Children, so if I move on to children missing in education, children missing in education refers to all children or young people of a statutory school age who are not on a school roll, not being educated otherwise, for example, in a private or alternative provision such as EOTUS or EHE, and those who have been out of school and education provision for a substantial period of time. So there are lots of reasons why children and young people go missing. Sometimes families move out of a local authority and they don't inform us, so we would then have to follow this up. Families don't register with a local school. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for that to happen. Children maybe aren't unable to attend their preferred school. Children may not enter the education system at the point at which they would normally, because they're just not registered with a school from the earliest point. Children are, on occasions, are withdrawn by their parents to become EHE, but don't inform the local authority. And that link between CME and EHE is really important for us to find those children. Children fail to complete transition from one phase to another. Within Monmouthshire, when children transfer from year 6 to year 7, there are quite a number of places they can go. We don't have a straightforward transfer to our local schools, but it isn't just within Monmouthshire. Pupils transfer into Torfaen, to Powys, to Newport, and into England. And there's a large piece of work that the team need to do at the beginning of the academic year to make sure we know where the children we have arrived in the following September. Parents generally may not register with a school at all. Sometimes families leave the county without informing the local authority. Or if they've gone away and they've had an agreed date of return, they don't actually return on that date. And families do not wish to be found on some occasions. They may change their names and move quite frequently, and that's obviously a challenge for us to make sure. Because if a child goes missing from education, they could be at significant risk of harm and safeguarding. So it is a really important area for us to think about. And that strong link that exists between CME processes and the EHE processes ensure that as a local authority, we know who may be missing from education as early as possible, and that they can be supported and appropriately coded should they be EHE or otherwise. So we've got some strengths in our provision. So we have shared our good practice with other local authorities in the All Wales EHE meetings. We've worked with the Welsh Government to develop new strategies to improve data recording and analysis of EHE learners is developing well here as a result of that. And contact with EHE's families is strong and amongst the highest in Wales. And Sonia was awarded a special award by the EHE families last year, a gold award, which is very, very unusual, but in recognition of her support for those families. And that leads on to the fact we have effective partnerships with schools, our families and wider services, and our processes for CME are robust and reflect the recent guidance. As with everything, we have some challenges. We've got new EHE guidance, which will place additional duties on the local authority going forward. That won't be with us until the end of January or a little later, but that will be in relation to the collection of data. And the number of EHE learners continues to increase. Okay. So I know that as members you have had the reports that we've provided to you. And will invite any questions from members.
Okay, so I think I'll ask the members present to put the hands up in the chat, and I can see that Councillor Penny Jones is first. So, Penny, do you want to ask the officers present your questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Sharon, for that report. I just have a few questions. It's really about the same thing, but is an annual visit enough? I know the regular EHE activities and engagement goes on, but that's not quite the same as offering. It doesn't offer the same opportunity for a deeper assessment as a progress visit. So is one annual visit enough? That's my first part of the question. My second is, how long do these annual visits last? Is it an hour? Is it a day? How long is the average visit? And the third one is, with the increased numbers, which have doubled, obviously, over recent years, is one dedicated officer enough? And when will the limit be reached? Because, they're spreading themselves quite thinly. I know there's support, but, the actual visiting officer, would there need to be another one or a part-time post? And how would this be addressed? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. If I start with the first question and the third question, then hand over to Sonia, then I think we will be able to give you a comprehensive answer. So an annual visit itself is an annual visit to check on pupils, on their welfare, to look at the curriculum, and to have the opportunity to see that their voice is heard. However, those are the formal visits that we do, but we also have lots of enrichment activities throughout the year, which means that we get the opportunity to see the children and families on a regular basis. It's quite a comprehensive programme, and Sonia will talk about a little bit more about the detail in a second. But then going on to the increased numbers, we have the wider EWS team currently is supporting some of our work with EHE, and we are hopeful that we will be able to increase capacity in the near future, because it is quite a significant increase. If I hand over to Sonia now to give you some more details about the engagement and the visits themselves. Thank you, Sonia.
Yes, when a learner becomes newly deregistered from school, we offer an initial visit alongside the annual visit. So we will offer an initial visit to make contact with the family and to set a plan of education with their intent of moving forward on how they intend to provide a suitable learning opportunities and learning experience for the learner. And then we will offer an annual visit, about 3 months later, once the family have had an opportunity to find their feet and embed themselves into a routine and find appropriate resources. The visits last, how long is a piece of string? They can last an hour or they can last 3 hours, depending on the information that the families want to share. We're working within Welsh Government guidance and policy in terms of offering the annual visits. And I am the point of contact for home educating families within the authority, and have regular contact with the majority of our families, throughout the year, via email, phone, and we do offer the enrichment activities that does offer the opportunity for families to engage with us on a more regular basis. Are there any questions on any of that information?
Chair, could I come back, please?
Go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Thank you for that reply. My fear is that the enrichment activities do not allow for the opportunity of deeper assessment. And, it's a bit like an inspection. When you know an inspection is going to happen, you prepare for it. And I just wondered if you're getting a true picture. I'm not talking all families. I'm just talking maybe some problem families. If you're getting a true picture by just, 1 hour a year, it just doesn't seem enough. And the increased capacity, I'm sure that you will need that. Perhaps you know, your visits will become longer when you have increased capacity, because I can see you're under strain with 119 pupils or whatever. So my worry is that a deeper assessment is not being carried out perhaps often enough in areas where it should be. Would you ideally like more time?
Sharon, do you want to
Could I respond to that? I can see what you are saying, but the enrichment activities are days that we may spend, for example, in Gilwern, doing lots of outdoor activities, getting to know the children. It's a great opportunity for us to get to know the EHE families. That means that if they have younger siblings, we know that we can expect them and we know where they are and we can see them. The relationships that develop during those activities are tremendous. We have parents and children coming in to the local authority to collect their resource bags. So we have another opportunity to make contact with that family and to have that conversation. And that doesn't, you know, that's not timed. It's whatever it needs to be, as Sonia said. We meet the needs of those families. And similarly, we have several of those throughout the year. The contact that the families have with our team is very frequent. And we're not assessing the children as such, because we do need to make sure that the children have a suitable education, but it is not like it is in a school. So we need to know that they are, you know, developing the skills that we would expect. But it isn't like assessing. It's just making sure the primary focus for us is to make sure those children are safe and happy, and that they are developing the skills that they need in the way that they need to do that.
Can I just come in there? There's a couple of questions in the chat, so if you would allow me, can I just... Councillor Riley has asked about the percentage of those families that come to the enrichment sort of contact. Are they optional, the enrichment activities? And what happens to the parents that won't engage, or the children that don't engage in those activities? What part of the support is actually not optional? What part is actually they have to do, or are the annual visits statutory visits that they have to comply with?
Okay, so the enrichment activities are very popular. So they are really well attended by pretty much most families, but nothing is compulsory. It is optional, but we get a very good attendance within Monmouthshire because of the relationships that we have with our families. Sometimes we do have the odd family that are difficult to engage with, and we do our best to do that. There is no right for us to be able to demand to see the child in law, but we do try to make sure that we have some communication with them, and they're few and far between. In those particular cases, if there were concerns, we would have the opportunity to work with other agencies to be able to access the child and the family to see, to make sure that things were as they should be. And if we had any concerns about the education that was being provided at home, we have the opportunity to issue a school attendance order, an SAO, and in which case the family would have to then revert to sending their child to school. It's I can't remember when we have actually issued many of those at all. It's a rare occurrence because, as I say, the work that the team do with the families themselves.
Thank you, Sharon. That's really helpful. Councillor Jones, are you happy with the response?
Yeah, still some concerns, but yes, overall, thank you very much.
Okay, can I move on now to Councillor Powell?
Yes, thank you. This is more of a statement than a question. What concerns me is it doesn't matter how good, how excellent the teaching can be at home. What they're missing out on is the mixing with the other children on a daily basis, and learning how to mix with people of their own age. They could have the most excellent teaching at home, but they're missing out on that, and that's what concerns me. It's not just the education. The education must be good, of course it must be, but it's the fact that they mix in with other children of their own age and learn to live with other people. And I think this is what they miss out on when they're only taught at home and they don't go to school. I don't know how anybody feels about that. Thank you.
I'd like to answer that, Councillor Powell, because that's a very valid concern that you have. However, from my experience of working with families within Monmouthshire, a lot of our EHE learners attend so many different activities and have such a full timetable and full schedule and routine of attending various different provisions outside of the LA. We have had an explosion over the last 2 or 3 years of EHE sort of day classes and online provisions being offered. And a lot of our families attend forest schools, and there's something called Beach Academy happening down in Porthcawl that is run by a marine biologist that has dedicated EHE days, and there are many different clubs and kind of schools and activities being offered within the Monmouthshire community by other EHE families that are holding days where they offer opportunities for all our learners to come together. So I would say that whilst, yes, some families, don't engage with outdoor clubs because maybe that individual learner has, emotional or anxiety-based issues and they feel unable to actually participate in group activities, but a majority of our families are running around like headless chickens, going from one group to another, and going to drama classes and theatre groups and scouts and brownies and judo clubs and karate clubs and gymnastics, and they are actually engaging in such a huge array of different learning opportunities where they have ample opportunity to actually engage with peers and children who have similar interests to them, which is very, very important, because then they can, it enables them to have the opportunity to build quite meaningful, deep friendships within the local community. So I would say a majority of our learners are not kind of socially isolated and are not friendship deprived. They are very, very active within the EHE community, within Monmouthshire and within the wider area, and accessing a lot of activities where they are thriving and learning and growing and having the best time, and also having educational learning experiences alongside making solid friendships. So whilst I understand your concern, it is not actually the case that all our EHE learners are being socially deprived, because they are having a lot of opportunities provided by their families that are enriching to their lives.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to hear that. I suppose I'm concerned that there's the odd few that possibly are living out in the country. They haven't got the transport to get to these things, and that happens. But I'm very pleased to hear that there are many activities which they mix with, because it is important that they learn to mix with each other. Thank you very much for your answer.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just to add to that as well. A lot of our learners are deregistered from school for their emotional well-being and mental health in terms of anxiety, and it's actually more beneficial to them to be home educated so that they can move through their experiences and heal, and that can happen outside of the school environment, because they feel safer at home, learning at home, and then being able to mix with children that have similar interests to them. And whilst yes, there are rural communities within Monmouthshire, and some of our families do live out in the countryside, I would say generally those families have good transport of their own, and are some of our busiest families networking within Monmouthshire and outside the community.
Thank you. Thank you. That's interesting. Can I move on to Councillor Peter Strong for your questions, please?
Thank you, Chair, and many thanks for the report. I mean, it certainly contained a lot of information that I was totally unaware of. So many thanks for that. And it's certainly gone a long way to allay the sort of fears that Councillor Powell raised, that I'm sure many of us did share. Some quick points. First of all, a very quick one on an acronym. Education is very acronym rich, as you know. On the first pie chart, NSSA, if we can have a meaning for that one, please. Second question, you say that you one of your tasks is to judge the suitability of the education the child is receiving. How is that judged? Is there sort of an objective criteria, like, for example, national curriculum levels or whatever the current vocabulary is on that? So what's the sort of criteria you use there? Is there an objective one? And thirdly, the list of reasons why families opt out of schooling, quite a significant number were for lifestyle or ideological reasons. Now, I know that religion is listed separately. So what are the sort of lifestyle, ideological reasons that are most common there, if we can, please? Thank you.
I do apologise for the acronym, but it's not of statutory school age. So we could, so we should put a glossary there. So we will do that next time. Okay,
Thank you. I wouldn't have got that one in a million years.
Thank you. I think a couple of us Googled it, and it was either sailing or something else, wasn't it?
Sailing Association.
Yeah,
National.
yeah.
So I'll hand over to Sonia now to answer your other questions.
Yes, just to recap, the yes, yeah. In terms of the ideological reasons, they can be varied in many. Some families really do feel that their children will be able to be educated outside of the school education system, just because they feel that the pressures that some of the learners are actually experiencing by having to go into an environment in school, if that learner actually has emotional based anxiety issues, the families do feel that it's in their welfare and for the betterment of their emotional and mental health to educate them at home. So ideological reasons covers quite a large umbrella of kind of criteria, but I would say generally it's because the families are actually just opting to want to educate their children in a different style outside of the normal traditional curriculum. Maybe they feel that the curriculum isn't necessarily appropriate for their child, that their child has different special interests outside of the curriculum, and it enables their children to actually focus on learning areas that they're passionate about. For example, we have one family whose child is a professional golfer, so she is home educated to be able to have lots of golf practice during the day, which is quite kind of seasonal based as well, but they also pay quite a lot of money for that child to access an online school, because there are online schools available where you can get actual full curriculum packages offered by Cambridge and Oxford online schools, and they can cost about £4,000 a year for a full curriculum package, and some of our families are actually funding that for their children to learn kind of standard maths and English and sciences and a range of other topics alongside following their specialised areas of interest, as I say, in terms of the golfer, for instance. We also have previously had another learner who was a professional snooker player, and they were these are children that are playing at high level, playing for Wales and representing Wales in tournaments, and it enables them to travel to across Europe to participate in tournaments and to represent Wales, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to do that if they were in school, because of attendance issues and reasons. Yeah, okay.
With regards to criteria, there isn't set criteria for us to judge pupils making progress, because they're pupils who are educated at home don't follow the curriculum. There is no need for them to follow that. But we do ensure that they are developing suitable skills. So are they able to read? Are they writing? Are they having opportunities to develop their numeracy skills? You know, when Sonia visits the home or talks to the children, they're able to share what they're learning about. Many of the families use outdoor experiences to develop understanding and to deepen learning and knowledge, and children can talk about that. So, you know, it is very much bespoke to the family and to the progress the children are making over that period of time. There isn't a set criteria because there is no set curriculum for children who are home educated. I think in the examples that Sonia has given, you know, that's very flexible, really. If children are, you know, engaging in sporting activities, they're going to be picking up their learning as and when they can. So it is really bespoke to the family and the children.
And just to add to what Sharon's just said, we do look for EHE learners do not have to follow the school curriculum if they choose not to, but many of our families actually do decide to follow the curriculum because they do wish for their children to want to achieve GCSE qualifications when they get to an age you know, where they're able to study at that level. So whilst there isn't a set you know, parameter that they must follow the curriculum, some families do, some families choose not to. But it is our policy that we will look for continuation of literacy and numeracy in terms of not necessarily curriculum GCSE level style maths and English, but there has to be a continuation of literacy development, numeracy skills development, plus a range of other subjects offered to that child, and those subjects can be very tailored and bespoke around that child's actual individual specific needs, their passions, their interests, and you know, those additional kind of range of topics you know, can be very academic based, because you know, being EHE gives the learner the opportunity to choose to study what they want to learn, but they can also be very kind of, you know, practical hands-on learning experiences if that child isn't necessarily academically minded, because you know, we have to be aware that not every child you know, is academically minded. Some of our learners and children in Monmouthshire do learn best you know, kinesthetically, practically, actually engaging in hands-on physical experiences. You know, so you know, we have you know, sort of year one in primary age children attending forest schools, learning how to whittle spoons and woodwork and carve, and making some, you know, absolutely amazing you know, things in their learning classes and opportunities. So you know, whilst they don't have to follow the curriculum, families do have to evidence that they are enabling that child to reach their fullest potential, whatever that child's fullest potential is. You know, there isn't a requirement to have to meet you know, certain kind of curriculum milestones, but they do have to evidence that the learning opportunities that they're providing is progressive, is enabling the child to learn, and they demonstrate that through keeping all the work that the children complete by building portfolios of evidence, and that may be, you know, actual sort of written work, or if it's of you know, photographs and videos of activities that the children are participating in. So you know, we do look for a full-time you know, range of home education experiences, but they might not necessarily look very academic, you know, based on the school model.
Thank you, Sonia. Can I move? Councillor Strong, do you want to come back?
Yeah, just very quickly. I mean, thanks for those answers, which are very informative. I'm very aware as a former teacher that you can easily measure lots of aspects of progress. In fact, you know, I think it's a frustration of many school teachers that they are expected to do those sort of measures down to the, you know, second decimal point or whatever, and you can't do that. So thanks for that answer. On the ideological thing, I think the problem there was perhaps with the word ideological, because the examples you gave were excellent examples of why you would want to opt out of the normal school routine. I knew one or two children like that in the field of sport. What I would call ideological, though, is do we have those what we used to call de-schoolers who believe, from an ideological point of view, that schooling itself is a sort of, I don't know, oppressive or whatever. Do we have a sort of a current of those? They used to be around in the 60s and whatever, but I don't know if we still have those.
Does somebody want to come back on that?
Thanks for your question. To be perfectly honest, I think it's just the way it is phrased when the data is collected. It is just, you know, some parents and families find that their lifestyle is better suited to their children being educated at home, rather than an ideological, unwillingness to join or to be schooled. It isn't that. They still want to give their children the best possible education, and that's their ideal for their child.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, so it's lifestyle rather than ideology, really, isn't it? We put them together, though. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that sort of clarification. That was really helpful. Can I move on now to Councillor Edwards?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for presenting your report today, and thank you for all the good work that you do, and obviously difficult work as well, and congratulations on your Gold Award, Sonia. Having been a sort of part-time trainee teaching assistant myself during the pandemic with my own children, I can appreciate how difficult it is for you to go into people's homes and sort of, you know, assess on what's been done. I think we all probably have the experience of children being home educated in one way or another, and my opinion tends to largely depend. It's all about the ability of the child and the ability of the parent as to the successful outcome of the education of the child. And thank you, Councillor Jones, for mentioning the monitoring part of it, which is was the basis of most of my questions. So I'm trying to stall you a second while I'm crossing them off, the ones that have been answered. But the ones remaining, I was wondering whether the reporting allows for different educational philosophies and approaches, whether the reporting distinguishes between a school-based education standards and home education standards and what you expect from that. And you're obviously clearly very well qualified for the role, and the team is. But what training or experience does the team have in elective home education, school education, in order to pick up on the substandard education at home, or any safeguarding issues? I thought you may want to sort of elaborate on that a bit more, you know, for yourself, really. Let me just look through my questions. Sorry. Councillor Strong mentioned another question that I was going to ask about the family lifestyle and ideology, and one of the things that I picked up on this, and you obviously mentioned this is something that has sort of stemmed from the pandemic period. Could you you mentioned that the number of children this involves now is 119. I couldn't find it in the report, but are there any numbers of the 119 that have never actually attended a school for more than a year, say? So in other words, it's sort of long-term homeschooling. And also, regarding the social aspect of education, being around other pupils, how many of those families are one-parent families? And have you had any experience, and I hate to say this, but occasionally children feed off their parents' issues and insecurities, and I've had one experience of this where it's quite obvious the child would sort of, not in this county by the way, but the child would quite clearly want to go to school, but it's the parents' sort of insecurities that is stopping that child from going to school. So, and how have you sort of remedied this to try and get that child back into education if possible? I have two other questions, I think. Shall I carry on, Chair? Or is that enough for now?
Do you want to? Yeah, please.
Yeah, just to answer the last question about parents kind of projecting their own anxieties. Yes, that can happen. We're currently in the process of one EHE learner returning back to school because it was his choice. Year 8 pupil. Mum decided to home educate for various reasons, but he has decided that he wants to go back to school. So we always take into account pupil voice, and on our on our visits and meetings there is a section on our reporting form for the pupil voice, and if a child actually states that they would like and prefer to go back to school because they've given EHE a go and they miss their friends, some of them, we will actively support them to return to school. Pupil voice is paramount and very, very important to us. For some cases where, maybe other, some parents are projecting their own insecurities or fears around the education system onto their children, we seek to work with them to try to alleviate and allay their concerns. And if it is right and suitable and proper for that child to return to school, then we will suggest that they make a voluntary application to return to school. And there are 6 pupils returned to school last year, having had an annual visit, and it was sort of determined that EHE maybe wasn't the best way forward, or that child wasn't actually attaining much progress, or the education wasn't suitable, or the parents were actually projecting their own fears and anxieties around the education system. If that was clear in 6 circumstances, so we suggested that they make a voluntary application to go back to school, and they did, and with support they returned to mainstream education.
So if I start with sort of standards, and you were talking about comparing standards, we're not comparing like with like. We are comparing different ways and different kinds of learning with different focus, providing, that the education that's being received is suitable. However, I would say that many of our EHE pupils have the opportunity to sit GCSEs. Some of them return to sixth form, and we have several who go to university and do really well. So the spread across the EHE community is similar to the spread if you look at the schools. Proportions will pupils will do different things. So that opportunity is definitely there for them. Our team are very experienced in working with pupils. They're very well aware of the different kinds of education that is available. Obviously, working within the education team, Sonia is up to date with different kinds of philosophies, but also you do an awful lot of research as well, trying to establish other opportunities for EHE families to be able to get the best possible education. And experience is key in this particular role. Knowing how to work with families and knowing how to get the best out of the opportunities for those pupils. If there's any advice that's required with regard to that, Sonia knows that she is able to come to any of us within the team, and particularly myself with an education background as well. So there is that support. Safeguarding wise, all of our EWS team are trained to Group 3, so we are at that highest level. So, and we're regularly updating our training and making sure that that's a focus of the discussions we have. And with all of the pupils we have within EWS, that's something that is a focus for the team. You've talked about the numbers that have increased, and it has been something which we've noted during the pandemic. Of the 119, I don't actually have the figures that have never attended at the moment, but I'm sure that we can get those for you. And we don't collect the composition of the family as data at this particular time. But obviously, we, just like in any community, we have different kinds of families. So, and again, the spread would be there as well. So, okay.
Is there anything you want to come back
Yes,
on?
thank you for that. What I meant by the composition of the family, I was thinking more the social aspect. If you've got more than one child, they've got each other to sort of bounce off and socialise with and everything else, whether you've got a single child family and that's the only child in that family, then it's a bit sort of a lonely experience. I imagine I wasn't a single child, so I would, but I'm just sort of picturing that really, and how many families are out there, and what sort of extra work could be done to alleviate that sort of lack of social interaction.
We do have quite a large number of families that have sibling links, and some families decide to home educate a child, then new siblings are born and they never go to school, to answer that element of your question. So we do have some, a small amount of children that have never been to school because they've never been registered. They've been EHE, from primary school age, and actually the home learning has happened far before them becoming statutory school age. So we do have quite a large number of EHE families that have sibling groups, but there are, yes, some families that have just one child who is EHE, and that is a question that I always ask the learners during my visit. Do they feel socially isolated? And I get a feel for, where they're at, and from the kind of extra learning activities out in the community that they may actually be accessing. But generally, I would say that the pupil voices that those children don't feel alienated or isolated. If they are an only child within that family. Some of them appreciate it, that one-on-one attention that they actually get directly, from the learning opportunities that the families or parents may be providing. Whilst it may be a factor to consider that child may feel isolated, I'm not encountering that in the visits that I'm undertaking with families.
Okay, thank you.
But can I just add that if we did encounter it, then I would obviously advise the families to look to, seek and engage in, clubs and outdoor activities, outside of the home, for that pupil to actually engage with their peers, for them to be able to, form friendships and have that peer interaction.
There's Martin. I can see you've got your hand up, but can you use the chat? Can you use the hand function on your computer? Because
I'd like to make a few comments, Chair, and my raise hand function has stopped working.
Okay. So, you're actually number 5.
That's absolutely fine. I'll wait all day.
Okay. Well, hopefully we won't be here all day, but we'll put you on the list of people wishing to speak. So, Councillor Edwards, are you content with that?
Yes, I was going to come back in later with my extra 2 questions. I'll let the others have a go now.
Councillor Newell, yeah, you're next for questions, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to colleagues in the Chamber for these reports. Absolutely fascinating reading. This is the first time I've come across these types of reports, so thank you for these. I've really enjoyed contributions and answers as well. And if I can, I have a keen interest in mental health issues and all sorts of related subjects to do with that. And I'm fascinated by the larger amount of children that are educated at home due to anxieties and phobias and probably all sorts of mental health conditions. And I have huge sympathy for them. Would you say, in your opinion, and I don't underestimate the work that you guys do, it's incredible, but would most of these cases be as a last resort where parents become frustrated with us as an authority? The second point to that is, what do we do as an authority if something is identified early on to help with these anxiety or phobias? And is the end game of this to return that child back into the school system and to resolve any anxiety and phobias they have? I'm just fascinated by how the whole system works and what we can do to help these families, and just your opinion on things, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you for your question. I think that across the school population, we are finding that, post-pandemic, there are more pupils who are suffering from anxiety, mental health, etc. And within our schools, particularly, we have lots of processes to be able to help and support those pupils. Huge amount of investment in training for practitioners, work with local authority officers, and we do have provision, EOTAS provision for those pupils who are in that position but are still within schools. So to go back to your question specifically around EHE pupils, there are options if they were in school to be able to be well supported, and therefore their parents are making a choice that being educated at home is more suitable to that particular pupil. And it is for their well-being and for their mental health, that's possibly the most appropriate decision for the parent. But of course, it doesn't mean that those pupils are not being supported within all of our schools and within our community. So it is, as you say, quite fascinating to see and to look at, but different parents make different choices for their children. And if they're benefiting from that at home, that work at home and home education, that's fine. But also, equally, they will be supported and benefiting from support from the local authority within the school system. So it's really an option for parents.
Can I add to that?
Oh, Sonia?
Yeah, just to add to what Sharon has just said, oftentimes parents do deregister, not as a last resort, but in response to having tried many different interventions to help their children to overcome any anxieties and emotional based issues that they may have. They will have gone through school processes, and there are many school processes available, referrals to space wellbeing team through to primary mental health, but a lot of children are experiencing quite severe anxieties that inform the parents' decision to deregister, and oftentimes when I meet with these families, parents actually feedback that once they've decided to EHE their child, and that child's been removed from the source of the anxiety, which is going into school and having to struggle, when they have poor coping skills, the families often say that almost within a few weeks that the child starts to decompress and starts to sort of heal and feel better. That's not to say that the anxiety is completely allayed. However, taking them out of the school environment where they were struggling to cope with being in that environment on a daily basis. Some children just can't cope with the demands that mainstream school expects of them. But oftentimes families say that their children that their children are better and feel more capable to learn when they're home educated, because if a child is experiencing a huge amount of anxiety or mental health issues that are very sometimes in some learners quite complex, feeling safe, feeling well and happy within yourself is the foundation, cornerstone of any child being able to thrive. And if a child is struggling in school with their mental health, they're not going to learn. They're unable to learn. They're not capable of learning if they don't feel well within themselves. And oftentimes families report that their child's learning more being home educated because they feel safer and happier, and the anxieties are allayed from feeling supported at home. If it is still identified that there are ongoing mental health issues and emotional based issues, we obviously signpost and make referrals through to appropriate agencies ourselves on behalf of the EHE families, and EHE families are still entitled to access all services that mainstream school pupils are entitled to in terms of counselling and CAMS referrals and mental health referrals, and some of our families are working alongside CAMS and going through the diagnosis through Space ND of working with mental health professionals. So EHE families aren't just sort of out of the system; they're very much still able to access the same referral pathways, to access support, to help with whatever issues, anxieties, mental health, etc. Issues need support with.
Thank you, Sonia. I've got quite a lot of hands up still, and I'm just going to, because I think Councillor Bond has sort of jumped around a bit, so I'm just going to go through my list of speakers so that you know that you're all on the list. So next will be Councillor Butler, then Councillor Riley, then Councillor Paul Pavia, then Councillor Graucut, then Councillor Bond, then Councillor Howarth, and then I'll let Councillor Edwards back in. I'm also aware that we've mainly concentrated on the home educated children and families, and that maybe some of the committee might want to sort of address the report about children missing in education. So just to be aware of, I'm also aware that that Suzanne's been sat on the end, so I'm sure there will be questions directed at you, because there was in the pre-meet. So without further ado, I'll ask Councillor Butler to ask her questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentations from the two of you who've spoken. I'm just wondering whether, if you want to speak, that might be better if you speak first. You might answer some of the questions we've got. We might take our hands down. Would that be okay?
Would you like me to give you? Sorry.
I'm sure you have something you want to tell us.
I can just give you an oversight
That would be lovely.
of what I do. So I am an education welfare officer, and I also lead in CME, which is Children Missing Education. So part of my role is monitoring the children who are statutory school age but not in any education. And as Sharon said, that could be for a number of reasons. Moving authorities, not letting us know. And what I do to track that is we keep a spreadsheet. So I'll add all the information on when I'm informed about these children. That can come from a school informing me. So, we haven't seen these children for some time. I'll add them then to the spreadsheet and do a bit of investigating. I'll liaise with different authorities and then make sure, I'll liaise with the parents and make sure that eventually that school application has been made. It could be that if they're in a different authority, I will just kind of refer over to that authority, and they'll confirm with me then that they will track them into education in their authority. There's lots of different reasons why children go missing out of education, and Sonia and I have quite close connections where, I'll go and visit a family, they're not on roll at any school, and then they might say to me, we're home educating. So Sonia and I then will liaise, and Sonia will go out and meet the family and introduce them to the world of EHE. Is there anything else that you wanted to know that I didn't answer?
No, I think everybody just wanted to give you an opportunity to say something. I'm speaking for all of us, I think. There are an awful lot of categories, aren't there? Having read the report, and having read the report, there are still children out there that we don't know about. they're under the radar. They're not.
Yeah, they definitely are, and whilst we can do everything we can to try and locate these children, and we do, we've recently put a training package out for schools so that they understand what children missing education is, and when they need to contact myself, so I can then go further with that investigation. They are still children, and there was a recent CME pilot scheme that was done by the local authority that we were a part of, which highlighted a number of children missing in education because it opened it up to a wider, we looked at independent schools and cross-border authorities. So it did open it up, and there are a lot of children who are missing in education, but we're quite confident that we're aware of majority in our authority, and we're tracking those and getting them back into education.
Okay, thank you. Now, I do have two other questions. I'm not going to
Can I just put in? I think it was interesting from the presentation that we have to be mindful that we are a county that is bordered on all sides, really. Not just sort of Welsh counties, but also we've got Herefordshire and South Gloss, and we've got over the Severn in sort of Bristol and whatever, and parents decide where their children are best suited sort of education wise. So thanks for that point. Jan, you can go back to your questions.
I have got a few, but I know other people have got them, so I'm going to try and stick to the two that we discussed in our pre-meeting. The first of all is the GCSE exams. Last year we had 9 learners who did their GCSEs. What percentage would that have been of the number who were actually Year 11 at that point who would have been doing GCSEs if they were in school?
Around about 30% of the cohort that would be EHE and eligible to take GCSEs. So about 30% sat GCSEs with us.
Okay. So how did that then, just a supplement, sorry, you were going to say something, weren't you?
Sorry, I was just going to add that we only, our exam offer is specific for Year 11 age learners, so we only offer for Year 11 age to sit the GCSEs with us.
Okay.
We are registered with WJC, Welsh, exam board, Cambridge and Oxford IGCSE exam boards.
Great. Okay, thank you. That's quite a low percentage out of the cohort, though, really, isn't it? If they'd been in school, they would have almost all of them would have been doing GCSEs. How does that transfer to NEETs? Is my sort of supplement to that?
Can I just come back on
that? Certainly.
Maybe that they have taken an examination, but not in the boards that we offer.
Okay.
So there is also that to consider as well. So, but obviously the children who don't have qualifications would then be considered as they're not leaving education, but they don't have the qualifications necessarily to be able to say that they've got them. So they could technically be NEET, but that's where we link with our Aspire team to be able to support them.
Okay.
And oftentimes some families feel that the children aren't ready to sit GCSE examinations at that particular point in time, and they wait to go to further education. And a lot of our learners do actually make applications to Coleg Gwent and continue further education on an entry level course, but they sit the GCSE Maths and English once they're on the actual college course then. So and parents sometimes, and the child actually feels that they're able and better ready to learn, given that kind of extra bit of time, and in a different environment, in a college environment. So, and as Sharon said, some families, do sit qualifications. We limit our entry for a provision for Year 11, but we have some learners, sitting GCSEs in Year 7. We've got, and a range of different subjects, and they tend to those families that are interested in working towards achieving qualifications stagger the actual exams over the course of Key Stage 3, so that the child's not having to sit 6 exams in one period of time, but because we need to kind of keep our provision because of capacity. We don't offer for year 9s and 10s to sit with us, but yeah, you know, so that's not to say that that whole that cohort doesn't sit with us, doesn't achieve qualifications. It just means they're not sitting them with us.
Okay, thank you. But as regards NEETs, you know, once they get to 18 or whatever, we've no idea. You know, they're off our hands then, aren't they? So we don't know how the long-term impact then is on NEETs. Would that be right, or is there any way of following?
We don't track the children that have gone back into education particularly,
No.
but it is something that we can consider, particularly as numbers are growing.
Yeah.
You know, so we do know that, as Sonia said, quite a few will go into further education when they are able to do so. And, you know, to follow those through would be beneficial, I think, going forward.
Thank you. And my final question, actually, I don't want to be too greedy because I know others have them. I'm looking at page 8 and the pie chart on page 8, which is about ALN. Seem to be quite a large number of the learners have additional learning needs or are waiting for an IDP. Is there any relation, you know, is this across all the schools, or there are particular schools where these children are attending with additional learning needs?
I think, you know, it's a general, it's generally across all schools, not any one more than another. And I would also say that with this particular chart, if you look at the timescales, the definition for additional learning needs is for a local authority IDP, so that may not necessarily be reflective of the actual current definition.
Yeah.
So it could be with a barrier to learning, perceived need, not necessarily technically an additional learning need as we would be reporting from this year, for this year.
Okay. All right, thank you. And I'll hand over now because I won't be greedy.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Councillor Riley to...
Thank you. And sorry if you end up creaking your necks a little bit with me being behind you. And my notes are a little bit incoherent because there's been a lot of questions asked. So I just wanted to say, I think that some of us have a view that some parents from the very start don't think that the curriculum will meet the needs that they believe their children have. But I think the statistics show a slightly different view for the majority, that they are children who are becoming home educated later in life, not from the get-go as they're born. So I'm concerned that Welsh Government provides funding to the local authorities to monitor and support EHE up to age 16, and that separate funding streams via Careers Wales provide support for children post 16. And what I'm hearing is that, Sonia, you've been very well praised, because I was concerned that if there is not planning early on through that 14 to 16 age group, that the outcomes for children going into other training are poor. I think it's fair to say that GCSEs are not the be-all and end-all, and that vocational training is very important. To be anecdotal, I have one child who went to study law at Oxford and one who stopped at 16, and I would say they've both been equally successful. So I think that's very important to say. But I am concerned with that gap if the planning isn't there. So I'm hoping, Sonia, unless you're so well regarded, you're going to tell me that planning has been there from 14, maybe 15 to 16, to get them into that type of other type of training and education, because if they drift, then the outcomes are poor. So, okay, let me just flick through to see what else I've written down. Yeah, I'm wondering at what age. I did think that the report was a little short on detail. I did think that we should have had more information, nothing that breaches GDPR, but a little bit more information about at what age children become disengaged, or the reasons why. There must be an age group where the parents sign the form. Is that the accurate time when they become disengaged, or has there been a period in between? So I'm just kind of quite interested to know what happens. Mental health, we've seen all the reasons, but I think there is this view that some parents go from age, when their children are maybe born, that they have a particular lifestyle, a particular ideology has been mentioned, but we are seeing that actually they have problems that disengage them from school rather than have that plan. And that planning, I think, is very important in some shape or form all the way through. Is that fair? Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of planning, for post-16 pathways, we offer the advice and guidance of Careers Wales services to all EHE learners from year 10 and above, and they can access, and we have a dedicated EHE careers officer who works. She has another caseload, but she is very well versed in the EHE policy and guidance, so she is able to effectively guide any parent and child queries and help them to plan their post-16 pathways. So that is a universal offer of engagement with the careers that we offer. Not all families take it up because, if some of our families are very self-sufficient, very self-motivated, and they are more than capable of making their own, pathways and plans, and are able to navigate, college applications, or looking at sixth form colleges and returning back to school in sixth form. That does happen oftentimes because pupils feel that it's a different environment and they're better and able to cope with going back into school to sit A levels. Some EHE families get absorbed into the family businesses and already have that kind of pathway mapped out for them. So the EHE learning that they're doing is supplementary to prepare them to be able to take up a role within the family business. We're quite a large rural kind of farming community within Monmouthshire. And a lot of not a lot, but a percentage of our EHE learners do go on to work the land and work the farms alongside their parents and families.
Thank you. Do you want to come back, Sue?
No, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't put the microphone on. Can I ask Councillor Pavia to ask his questions? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And so just thank the officers for the presentation and the report. My first question just on EHE. Now, the report states, and it was drawn out in the presentation too, that there's a higher prevalence in secondary schools than primary schools, and it also notes that the upper end of Key Stage 4, so years 10 and 11, are much higher than other year groups. And the report cites a number of issues relating to that, so emotional-based school avoidance, mental health, anxiety, trauma, ALN, as those specific drivers to EHE in those 2 years. But could this also be potentially a symptom of unmet need in mainstream education? I'm just wondering if officers agree with that view, and if they do agree with that view, then we also need to find school-based alternatives to either keep children in mainstream or to get them back into mainstream as quickly as possible if they have dropped out towards the latter period of what in terms of mainstream is really important 2 years. So if we are looking at preventative action, what are those sort of top 2 or 3 preventative actions that we are taking with secondary schools to reduce the push factors really to which are pushing those children into EHE? In terms of children missing in education, now I'm just sort of reviewing the policy, and it talks about this 4-week period where children potentially come off the referring come off the roll. The policy refers to the sort of usual 4-week period, but I think it also acknowledges there's a risk of harm in that 4-week period. So I'm just trying to understand: is there any risk triage model that determines, what could be or should be an immediate escalation, and what could be potentially, in the sort of back end of that latter period, if officers are sort of fairly comfortable that there's not an urgent issue? I'm just trying to understand, are there same day referrals to, say, police or children's services that would sort of escalate something up the chain further? And finally, just in relation to the children missing in education as well, and just thinking about, that this has to be a multi-agency approach. It can't just be on education. And I think, we all assume that each of those other partners involved, whether that's police, youth justice, housing, all take the responsibility seriously and pass information on a timely basis. So I'm just trying to understand, are those referrals from other partner agencies happening, and are there any barriers that exist with that information sharing to ensure there's there is that timely information flow? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pavia. I think that's a really, really important points made about missing children and the actual sort of policy document, and I'd really like to be able to explore that further. Obviously, when things go wrong, and it's usually around sharing of communication and the protocols for sharing that communication about vulnerable children and families that are at risk. So, Sharon, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we've recently devised a training package that we are due to go out to all our stakeholders. We find obviously schools are very good at reporting the children that are not attending. Sometimes the wider agencies, the housing, and they're not really aware to the point where they inform us of every time. So we've devised a training package that we're going to go out to police, children's services, schools, housing, all of our wider stakeholders that we can get referrals from, just to inform them about the processes and when they need to inform us, so that we can ensure that every avenue where there's a potential to identify these children is highlighted, and that those services know the protocol of sharing it with us, so that then I can investigate and get that tracking going. Is there anything that you wanted me to add to that? No? Okay, thank you.
Can I just... And just to add to that, I think in Monmouthshire, across the whole of the LA, safeguarding is a priority, and I regularly receive information from housing colleagues if they've encountered families potentially moving across border into Monmouthshire if they're accessing emergency housing, and they will make inquiries with us as an HE team if they have information to share about families moving into the area that we're not actually aware of, who are home educating their children. So that does happen. We have Operation Encompass as well, where we get daily reports shared from the police if they've attended any incidents overnight where children have been involved, and that will come through to our team, and then that information is disseminated amongst the relevant colleagues. If a child is EHE and it's on the system at their HE, that information comes to Michelle Kia and then filtered to me, where I then will make contact with the families and do a welfare check, based on the information provided by the police in that Operation Encompass report. If safeguarding issues are raised and highlighted. We do sometimes attend emergency strategy meetings, run by children's services, and that has happened recently where a family who were EHE, went missing. We received some concerning safeguarding information. I made a DTR to children's services alongside police making their own DTR, and within about 4 hours we had an emergency strategy meeting with multi-agency members of MCC staff, and a plan of action agreed. So safeguarding is one of our priorities, and we're very proactive in addressing children missing in education, and from an EHE point of view, it's already been mentioned that in Monmouthshire, we are kind of sat in the middle of many different borders and different LAs. In terms of children missing in education, we send out move out of area forms if we've got a child coming out of a school, and they're being removed to be EHE, but then they're not living in Monmouthshire, because it does happen. We have children attending Monmouth Comprehensive who live in Gloucester, LA, up in Colford, etc. I will send out move out of area forms to relevant LA to notify them that an EHE family have deregistered from a Monmouthshire school and a resident in their area, and then likewise then outside other local LAs will inform us through the same process if Monmouthshire resident children have been deregistered from an outside LA school. So I would say that our systems are quite robust, and yes, there may be instances where we're not aware of absolutely every child. Sometimes families do move into Monmouthshire that are EHE, but we do all that we can to pick them up.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, with the Operation Encompass, that does sometimes highlight children missing in education. So our team will pick up the reports and disseminate them out, and we'll disseminate them out to the school that they are attending, and that sometimes highlight that actually they're not attending any school. So that's a really good protocol. And I know Sonia touched on the movement out of area forms. We do that for children missing education as well. So if we've got a child that is moving out of our authority into another authority, I'll inform that local authority so that they're aware of them, and likewise they do the same for us as well. So yeah, we follow the same processes there.
Suzanne, can I just follow that up? Is that just to kind of, I don't know, a form going to another authority saying this family is moving into your area, but do you actually speak to somebody so that, I mean, I'm just aware that things can fall through sort of, there are things that can go wrong, and actually it's not just about sending the form through, but actually that somebody's actually read it and taken that on board so that family is not lost in the system, because that seems to me like that is an area where communication can break down.
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul Pavier, I'm just butting in.
Yeah, so when I send a movement out of area form to it, we've got a contact list for the different authorities and who the CME officer would be in that authority. So I would send a movement out of area form to that contact, and I wouldn't close them on my end until I've had confirmation that they've picked up the referral and that they've confirmed that they will then track into education. And likewise, I would always, respond to a movement out of area in the same way.
Thank you, that's reassuring. Can I go back to Councillor Pavier and see if he's got any sort of follow-up questions?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And that was obviously really heartening to know, within the corporate body, there's good touch points in terms of information sharing, and hopefully in terms of the training package that's being devised is going to be shared with the sort of multi-agency partners. That's going to be really helpful to them to understand the key protocols and ensuring that everyone's on the same page. I think in terms of what the one question about risk triage, I think you sort of answered that in terms of the description example you gave about, you convened a multi-agency meeting within a very, very short space of time. So I think you've sort of said, there is a risk triage model to ensure escalation, and I think you sort of answered that. Just on the question on EAG and at that sort of year 10, year 11 key stage 4 area and that growth, and the question of whether or not that it is also a symptom of an unmet need in mainstream education, as well as all the other potential issues around mental health, anxiety and trauma. And I'm just wondering what, in terms of prevention and early intervention, what are we doing with secondary schools to reduce that push factor? Because those 2 years, if a child has been in mainstream education for the majority of their statutory schooling, and then has suddenly dropped off at that point, that is a very different approach to EHE, which is a decision that was made early on, or I know the examples you gave about sport in prowess, and as children and young people develop, and that might come in periodically, but those who have been in mainstream and sort of drop off at those last two years, is there anything that we're doing with the schools to prevent those push factors from happening? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for your question. So with regard to pupils in year 10 and 11, historically, we always have pupils who will opt out because it does become quite stressful for some of them. And as I said, we don't always have all of the answers, all of the reasons why pupils move. That being said, I do have to say that we've invested a huge amount of time and effort in training through our inclusion department to support schools develop their skills for EBSA, trauma-informed and neurodivergence, and that is really successful in being able to support pupils to have the support they need within school. It's as I say, huge investment and very well received by schools, and being used effectively in order to maintain children's places in schools if that's what they feel is the right decision for them. But for some children it will become overwhelming, and if you think about the time lag between the pandemic and those pupils who are in year 10 and 11, those particular pupils would have been hit quite significantly on that transition into secondary at that time. So it's not unexpected that we would have a greater cohort than normal, possibly electing to home educate at that time for their own well-being. But there is a tremendous amount of work going on through our inclusion team and through our own EWS team to support those pupils.
Thank you. Do you want to come back at any point? No? Okay. Can I move on to Councillor Gowcote, please?
Thank you, Chair. My moment has come. And again, apologies for waving at you, but my raised hand has disappeared from my screen. So I was glad that you allowed me to catch your eye. I'd like to raise a few issues and try to tease a bit more from where we've got so far. And I'd like to start way back in the 1980s when I was head of upper school at Tredegar Comp. And the national curriculum was introduced by our first female Prime Minister. Her name escapes me, but... and we were told in training, of which there was a huge amount, that the national curriculum represented an entitlement for all children. And I wonder to what extent that concept of a body of learning that we should all have is still there, or whether it's old hat. Because you've talked about, children having their own interests, and it could be a sporting route. Is there such a thing as a body of learning that it is right that we should all attempt to have? And from that, I'm very interested in a group of children who we haven't really mentioned much today, and those are children who are looked after. And I would guess that as they get older into secondary education, they will start to have some very firm ideas about what they want to learn. And yet I'm worried, and I've spent half my life with this syndrome. It's the syndrome which is called you don't know what you don't know. So how do you take a 16-year-old looked after child who's never been into a formal school setting and say, just tell me what you want to learn and we'll make sure that you're able to go on and be successful in the future? I think elementary education has been a right for well over 100 years in Britain now, since 1870. And back in Victorian England, working class people fought for an education. They got an education before they could vote, to put it simply. And I wonder to what extent the act of going to school. I remember my daughter's university, the motto was manners maketh man. And do we actually say to children, the act of going to school is important and there are things that you should know? And yes, to an extent we listen to the pupil's voice. I think that's vitally important. But it comes back to you don't know what you don't know. And how sometimes do you know what's important? And direct learning. You know, you're not in a normal school, but it's important that we look at this and that you learn this. And it's often said, just in conclusion, that one of the biggest problems in contemporary education in the United Kingdom is attendance. And it's been a huge problem post-pandemic. And most head teachers at the start of this school year or last school year, if they were asked what their number one priority was, they would have said attendance and getting children back into school. I do worry, and I would never want to take away the right of parents to educate at home. But coming back to what Maureen Powell said right at the start of our questioning, you know, maybe there is a place also for saying to children, you go to school. You know, it's important in our society that you go to school. Where's the balance philosophically between it's good for you to go to school and the kids saying, I don't want to go to school? Because, to be honest, I hated school. I grudgingly admit it did me good in the end, but I didn't like it for 1 minute. So the ramblings of an old man there, but your thoughts would be appreciated.
So if I can respond a little bit to that, Martin, I think we have to recognise that we have a curriculum in Wales which is very fluid and bespoke to the learner. And in that case, if you wander into our schools and you visit them as regularly as I do, you will see children in forest schools. You will see children that have learning that they're definitely leading themselves. And they are, you know, the skills that they are developing are through the experiences that they have. And that is becoming more evident. And that means that the quality of the understanding why they're learning, how they're learning, what the purpose is so much greater than it ever has been. And their learning is a lot deeper than it has been generally. And, you know, there is a lot to be said of where we are in Wales in taking that approach. And in that particular case, you have every school with a different curriculum that's contextually based from its community and the needs of its pupils. It's meeting those individual children's needs in school. But in the same way, we have our parents at home who are educating their children in similar ways. We've heard about the activities that they're engaging with and are meeting the needs of their children individually and in a bespoke way. I don't think there's any right, you know, they're both options for parents. They have the right to choose to home educate. They have the right to choose to go to school. depending on the children and the circumstances, that choice, parents will make the choice that's right for their students. The skills that are developed in schools and through EHE should be broadly similar. The ability to be able to partake and to, make their way in the world so that they can have lots of options in the future should be the same wherever they are educated. And there are lots of similarities between the activities in both parts of the education system in order to support those learners appropriately.
Thank you. You okay? Yeah, okay. Thank you for that, Martin. Can I move on to Councillor Bond? If you want to sort of present your questions, that's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well done, everybody. Great work being done, and I see that it's been appreciated. So well done, Sonia and everybody. A great report. One of the I've got 3 questions, if that's right, 3 areas. So the first one is around the data on page 13 and throughout the report. I wonder what other data could be, has been spoken about already, could be added. And Sharon, I think you've suggested that there'd be additional information that could be added, because that would also help, of course, find the root cause of why the numbers are increasing. And also relative to Wales, you said that, or it said in the report or your presentation, that we were, for example, the additional visits were in the top performance for Wales. I just wondered whether the numbers are increasing in Wales and whether interactions with people from other authorities could help identify whether there are any similarities and any learning from each other. That's the first question. Thank you. Sorry, I started to get croaky. The second one is around following on from Councillor Pavia. Are we doing enough the right things in education to allow our young people to thrive? So you were talking very much about resilience. Should we be looking at the bigger picture? Should we be giving feedback to the lawmakers and the policy makers about social and emotional learning in schools? So I slightly differ, as being a councillor, differ slightly with my experience. I know I haven't seen as many as you, obviously, that children who are educated at home sometimes do miss out on that peer opportunity to socialise. So with the 2 highest areas being lifestyle and anxious and phobic behaviours, I wonder, are we doing enough? You mentioned about ELSAs and everything in schools. I would respectfully challenge that we haven't got enough. We do react. We don't act proactively. We don't give young people the skills before they indicate that they're going, they're becoming affected by bullying or social media abuse or behaviour. I mean, the indications are, for the last presentation of from the last educational year, was that bad behaviour is increasing, misogyny is increasing, there's physical behaviours getting worse. So are we equipping our young people, those that haven't yet gone into that ELSA support or CAMS support or whatever? And we know that CAMS is overrun. CAMS haven't got enough resource to cover all that we need. So are we doing enough? I'm a great advocate in social and emotional learning, and so there's a gap in my view, but I'd like your opinion, please. And the last one is, have we got learning portfolios for the children and young people that are part of this, the EHE, so that we can help possibly avoid NEET in the future? I know that's been mentioned a number of times, but is there any physical evidence, any portfolio, any reports, any work that the children do that you look at or anybody assesses as to their ongoing performance? Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll respond first of all to the visits for EHE. We are amongst the highest in Wales in the number of visits proportionally that we make during the year. And we are in regular contact with the All Wales EHE group to share that good practice, so that we can, share our practice, but also learn from others. And that's a regular meeting. And Michelle, who should have been presenting today, is a regular attender at that meeting as well, and would probably be able to give you more details on the kinds of things that are going on at this minute in time. But, it's not something that we'll ever stop looking at and seeing where we can improve and get better, in the way that we support those families. Talking about, are we doing enough for young people? We are supporting schools and pupils tremendously through the work that we're doing, particularly with our inclusion team. As I said, we are looking at lots of professional learning for staff and how that's being translated into schools and supporting pupils. And also we've got many schools who are engaged in the school approaches to well-being, and, seeing how that is impacting positively in our schools and with our children and young people, for them to understand, how they feel and share their thoughts, their concerns, being very active in the direction of the school, is certainly helping with that, particularly with things like behaviour, and, potential sorts of bullying, if that's the case, and how that's being dealt with. So there is an awful lot going on in our school. It doesn't mean that we think that we can't do more, because yes, we can. We could always do more. But I wouldn't want anyone to feel that we weren't already doing a great deal to support those pupils positively. I'll hand over to Sonia to talk about the portfolios.
Yeah, I always take photographs of all the children's work and build, portfolios and files of evidence, for the examples of learning. And that's key when a family becomes newly deregistered. They are advised, we always advise them that you keep all the work, that you build that portfolio, as I already touched on previously, through written work, saving files, taking photographs and videos. So that is something that the families, that there's an expectation on the families that they need to do, just so that they can evidence and examples the work that they're doing, and then that enables them to be able to sort of demonstrate how they're tracking the progress of the learning that they're providing. In January, the child didn't know 6 or 7 times table, through a body of work, through worksheets that they can evidence and show us during the visits. By March, they'd learnt the times table. So that's the kind of portfolio work that we advise families to keep. And the majority of them, they do it very, very well. I will then take photographs and just build up those examples of work in the children's files that we keep. In terms of, you mentioned kind of, advising on, are we doing enough to encourage our, children to, be in school. I know that from experience of work, talking to some of our families, when a child gets to kind of year 10, 11 age, some of them are just not academically minded. Some of them are not capable of achieving that magic C grade at GCSE just because they do not have the capacity to be able to achieve that. But, they want to learn. And I hear this from families regularly. My child wants to learn. They're just, not capable at this time of working and learning within the school model. And that goes back to mental health and anxiety issues that are quite prevalent amongst that kind of year 10 and 11 cohort. And I think a lot of them get to the point of saturation at that age. They have kind of struggled and engaged in different various interventions that school have put in place over the year of key stage 3. When they get to year 10 and 11, if they're not, it's a whole picture, isn't it? You can't just take a small segment of the pie. If they've reached that saturation point and they're not academically minded, and the pressures of the curriculum and being in the social environment, get too much. EHE is a viable option for them, but they want to learn. GCSEs might not be something that they're capable of achieving at that time, but I know that a lot of them would benefit from vocational skill learning, very much so. I know that there aren't any pre-16 college courses available for year 10s and 11s, and there were previously in years gone by, and I know that we actually have a family that travelled to Bristol to Clifton College, so that EHE child could access a pre-16 college course and do BTEC vocational sport qualifications, but they had to go out of Wales to access that because that provision isn't available under current Welsh education policy. But I know that we could fill a college vocational skill course with pre-16s off our existing EHE caseload currently. It's just that because they want to learn, they want to achieve qualifications, but the school model just isn't for them at this point in time, based on multiple complex factors.
Sorry, can I just jump in there on the back of what Sonia was saying about are we doing enough to encourage children into school? With my EWO add-on, when I'm working with children who are suffering with poor attendance, we will do all we can at that point to keep them in school, and we will look at what support needs to be put in place, what can school do, what other provisions can we look at. We will do everything we can, and I often hear in these meetings that I have is that, I want to come to school and I just can't get myself through the door. So we kind of, as EWOs, we will do all that base work before that point comes where they just say we think our child would be better as home educators.
Okay, Councillor Bond, do you want to come back?
Thank you very much for those answers. You're all very, very caring, thoughtful people, I can tell. And particularly, Sonia, you were saying about earlier about and what I was trying to get to as well was about young people understanding the development of that massive transition they're going through and the effects of that transition going through their adolescence and the changes to everything about themselves, cognitive and everything else. So about the individuals before they get to the stage where they're thinking of not coming to school, or they're about helping the resilience, really, and that sort of training. So proactively, that's what I was trying to get at. But thank you very much for really good information. So the only other question, sorry, from that is: have you got the capacity, Sonia, to follow up on all those portfolios? You said the majority are good. So have you got the capacity? I know Sharon said that you might be looking for more resource in this area, but currently, have you got the capacity? Thank you.
Sorry, the capacity for what exactly?
You mentioned that the majority of portfolios are good, and you see you're able to take photographs. I've just picked up on a word you said. You might not have meant that. That there might be some parents that aren't, or some areas where they're not quite so good. Have you got the time in, because you're one person, to be chasing all that up?
Right, okay. Some families actually decline to have a face-to-face meeting, so I don't go to the home and actually have a meeting directly with the family. Some families do choose to submit email reports, which are very comprehensive, and we upload that information that the families provide themselves into the children's files. So sometimes they do send in pictures, evidence of videos, and pictures of the work that the child's completed, but sometimes and it is within the parents' own preference to not share the children's work, and it's a very, very small, literally 1 or 2 families refuse to show the children's work because they use Welsh Government policy that says that they don't have to basically, share their work with us, and we have no legal right as EHE officers to demand to see the work that child is completing. And some of the families, know Welsh Government policy, inside and out. And if they are, quite adamant that they don't want to share that children's work because it's the children's personal property, is what I have been told by one family, then they're not obliged to do so. In that instance, I work quite diligently to try to overcome those barriers with that family, but they are working within current guidance and policy by submitting an email update on an annual basis.
Thank you very much. Well done. You must be a fine line you're treading sometimes. I wonder how that links to NEAT, but you won't necessarily know that. But thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bond. Can I move on now to Councillor Howarth? You've been waiting a long time, and thanks for your patience. So ask your questions.
I'm fine, Chair. Thank you very much. And firstly, may I just thank everyone for today. Really, really important that we brought this to the select. But I think the questions and the officers here today have just made everything so comfortable for us as councillors, and made me personally feel really comfortable that our team is doing a marvellous piece of work out there. Paul Pavia sorted the one question out for me about the multi-agency, which I really appreciate, with the concerns that officers have about we have a growing problem here, and it's not going to be relieved. So that is really good, and I do appreciate the honesty of making sure that we do connect with the multi-agency. So I do have one question, and I definitely know I will have a supplementary to it. So my first question then is, what engagement does our cabinet member and our education director have with you guys, reference to where we are with the home education portfolio that you have? And I know you're under strain, and I know you're under financed, and I know more monies. So what connection do they have? Because I will have a supplementary with the answer, whichever answer you give me. Thank you.
So obviously I meet regularly with Will, and Michelle, who is the EWS team leader, meets regularly with, we meet monthly with Will to talk about attendance, EHE, and all of the CME, and all of the areas that are covered under the EWS team. And similarly, we have regular meetings with Laura to update her on, on attendance and any of the issues that are arising that are particularly pressing. So, for example, we would know, Will is aware of the increase in the numbers of EHE pupils, as is the same pattern across Wales. So that's quite a regular information sharing via us as a team.
Okay.
Simon, do you want to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, I do have a supplementary, a very important supplementary. So, Sharon, if you don't mind me calling you Sharon. So in last month's council meeting, and this has happened on 2 occasions now, we've asked questions reference to on the numbers that we have in home educated within the authority. On the last one, which is all public domain, which I feel today is been really important that we are open to the public and we're transparent. I didn't actually get an answer from the Director of Education's question that I put to him, how many we were having, because I didn't feel he knew, but it felt as though he didn't want to disclose that information to us. Whereas today, we've had all this information given to us, which is absolutely marvellous and is in public domain. Why do you think that is then? I know it's a bit of a very awkward question, but it's public domain, that the video's there. Could I suggest that we make sure that on his annual report that he does give to council, that we do have this agendaed, because it is so important with the concerns that we have there? Thank you, Chair.
Can I come back on that? Certainly, we know that we need to report to you annually with regard to EHE. So we will be coming back to you with an updated report for the figures for this particular year when it ends. The EHE year doesn't always align with any of the other years that we have at the moment. So it's not academic, it's not financial, it's not a calendar year, it's somewhere in between. So it makes it a little bit tricky for us, but we will be coming back to you with an updated on an annual basis now.
And can we make sure that Will's annual report from yourself as Sharon as leader of the team, we do include something on this, please?
Oh, sorry, can I just interject? Can we actually put that on as our feedback?
Recommendation. Okay.
Yeah. And also, somebody mentioned that the guidance was going to be updated. So obviously that will influence what information comes through as well.
Yes, we're expecting something from Welsh Government at the end of January, beginning of February. But, you know, as soon as we have that, we will be looking at our policy and bringing that back to you for consideration, as well as updating you on EHE figures annually.
Thank you. No more questions from myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. Before I move on to Chris Edwards, can I just say that I think the discussion and the questions this morning have been really, really useful, both for me and for hopefully anybody that's watching out there. And I know that this topic came up in this committee a little while ago, and so I think we've got a better grounding of where we are within Monmouthshire, how you're supportive. You know, Sonia, you're so enthusiastic about the work you do, and I really appreciate that work, and I'm sure the other members of the team as well. So what I would like to use the remaining time for our meeting is to go back to some of the members that have got hands up and ask specifically if there are questions on the second report about missing children in education, to actually make sure that anybody that wants to ask a question about that report does so in the remaining minutes left. So I'm going to now move back to Christopher Edwards, please.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me back in. So we're asking questions about the second part of the
You can ask both for both, but I'm mindful that we've had two reports in front of us, and that we need to make sure that we scrutinise both. So thank you.
I've just got a couple of minor questions from the EHE report. And you mentioned that the local authority encourages schools to hold a meeting with parents following such a decision to educate from home, to discuss and offer any advice for the future as appropriate. I imagine this is a hugely important and beneficial part of the whole process for the parent and for yourselves and the school. And are there any instances where this doesn't usually happen, and what is done to remedy this if it happens? I was just wondering whether it would be beneficial for a member of the team to be part of this meeting rather than it just being the school and the parent. My second quick question was, in another part of the report, it mentions about all this information about the home educated learners from reception to year 11 is stored securely, and data is collated over this time. I mean, assuming this information is stored for a lengthy period of time, so perhaps until the child is an adult, just in case they move from school to home education, then back to school, perhaps even then out of county, who knows? So could you answer that as well? Shall I ask my questions now then about the next part of the report to save time, if I can find them? Only a couple of points on the children missing education policy. Under the procedures for Monmouthshire schools, it mentions about this 15-day turnaround for the notification? I mean, 15 days is a long time if a child and a parent have decided to take that child out of school or move to one school to another. I was wondering what you think about those 15 days. I mean, some must slip through the net, and I'm grateful to what you said earlier on about is always follow-ups just to make sure. Also, as well, about when a child leaves a Monmouthshire school without notice being given by the parent or school, it does mention, I mean, I know the chair mentioned about following up on the forms that are submitted. But in this particular instance, this comes from the school, where a form is then emailed to the Children Missing in Education email address. I'm assuming the school does actually follow it up straight away with a phone call to say, have you received this? Or, you'll be expecting this, and so on. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to answer the last question that you asked, a school would send in an Appendice 1 form to myself. They can email me, they can call me, and we can have that conversation on the phone. But I would always say to them, send that form over to me. And I would then always go back and confirm that I've received that. And as the investigation to where this child actually is goes on, I will always go back and update the school. We always tell the school that they are to keep the child on roll until we have located them in whatever school they're in. And then we will advise that school when they can remove them off roll, just so that we don't lose them in the system while we're trying to establish what school role they're on. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
With regard to the 15 days, yes, it can be a long time out of school for a pupil. But until a pupil is accepted at another school, they remain on roll with the existing school. And on occasions, sometimes it takes time to establish provision for a child that's moving in. So it may well be that they have support where they are, and that needs to be moved over to another school, etc. And it might be towards the end of that or a little later, if that's the case. But in most cases, we try to make sure that it is within those 15 days. But no pupil should be off roll at any time.
Thanks. I was just thinking of more of the safeguarding issue, in that anything could have happened to that child in that period. So,
which is why they stay on the roll of the school, and if they're not actually attending that school, then there will be eyes on one way or another.
I was just going to add to that. So when they're on the school roll, the school will be expected to carry out their first day responses. So they'll be contacting parents daily for reasons why they're not in. They'll be carrying out home visits as well. And if school felt that there was a referral needed to children's services, they would carry that out then as well.
Okay, thanks for that reassurance.
Okay, to address the school meetings that are advised before a child becomes deregistered, yes, it is our recommendation that all schools have that meeting with families and with the parents when they have, got an initial indication that they do want to potentially EHE. Oftentimes parents refuse and decline those meetings because they've already made their decision, and a lot of the time these families don't make the decision lightly, and it's not just a kind of knee-jerk snap reaction. They've been considering deregistration and home education for quite some time before they actually take that leap of faith and send in the deregistration notice. So it is our advice that all schools meet with families. However, it doesn't happen because sometimes the families absolutely refuse because they've made their decision and they begin engaging with us. I do attend meetings with some families in schools. Generally, that's as a reintegration when they're going back into school, because it does happen at times when some families, decide to EHE for various reasons. They give it a go. They find that it's not working for multiple reasons. Maybe the child isn't engaging in the education, or the family realise that they've taken on a huge responsibility, because that is something that I really convey in my initial discussions, is the enormity of the responsibility responsibility of becoming a full-time sole educator of your child. But in some families recognise that that they can't achieve that suitability, so they return to school. And I will advocate and act within that process of helping them and assisting them to make the transition and the applications through our MCC portal back into school. If there have been previous concerns for that child before they were deregistered in terms of attendance or their ability to engage effectively in mainstream education, I'll suggest a PSP, and we look to put in support mechanisms in and around that child to give a package of reintegration, back into mainstream school. I don't attend that many meetings. I have done, but it's not kind of standard that I get involved with families prior to them deregistering, because that is school's basic responsibility to try and prevent that from happening and put in interventions before it gets to that point where the family want to remove the children. But I am the first point of contact for EHE within the authority for all families, and I regularly take queries from families who are thinking about it and want to make an informed decision, and I have those discussions with them on how to proceed and the responsibilities that they're taking on. That's about the meetings. And in terms of data and keeping learner information, we keep all data, obviously under GDPR regulations, but we close learners' files if they return to school or if they get to year 11 and are no longer statutory school age. We close the files, but obviously they're still kept within our SharePoint system. Now we migrated to SharePoint within the authority about a year or so ago, and our file keeping is robust in terms of information that we keep. Every piece of contact I have, whether that's a text or an email or a phone call or a visit, or an attendance to an enrichment activity, we record everything on individual chronologies for all those learners. Each learner has a chronology of involvement in their files. That's all recorded, that's all kept, and those files are stored. We have records going back, for the last decade or so.
That's great, thank you.
Thanks for that. Can I move on to Councillor Penny Jones, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's more of a comment, really. I mean, we all know that Monmouthshire it holds safeguarding as a major priority, and it's excellent at it. And I'm really pleased that you hold regular meetings with partners and stakeholders, who may be involved. I'm just concerned regarding missing children. We don't seem to have mentioned county lines or slavery. Are those aspects ever taken into account when following this up? I mean, it won't be by you directly, I understand that, but is it part of the whole remit? Thank you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and obviously, when we've got situations when we've got children going over county lines, we will always, if there's any concerns or school have ever had any concerns, we'll involve children's services straight away. And in instances where we've got children that are open to children's services who maybe go back to their home county, so their home country, we would then ask children's services to liaise with the relevant authorities in that country as well. So we track them right through.
Thank you. That's reassuring because county lines knows no boundaries, do they, or slavery or whatever. So that's good. It's followed through. Thank you.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm aware that from reading this report that this is feeding into a Welsh Government pilot. And I was talking to Lynn Neagle last week, who said that there is shortly to be some new information. Well, what I'm not clear about is the information about children missing from education filtered into that pilot scheme. I thought that between the two reports we've had today that there was a coherence, continuity and clarity of role that I was impressed with, but it's those little gaps, and you have assured me that those gaps between your department, and when we go on to Careers Wales for their training, that seems to be covered. So I'm pleased. I'm just wondering whether that is through your own goodwill or through policy. What I'm concerned about, because I've heard some parents decline certain things, is what happens if you haven't been able, if your access to a child is denied. And I'm then sort of wanting to tie that into page 32, where it says, which is in the child missing education report, what, if not found, pupils' details uploaded, what is the continuity between your department in circumstances like that, where you may, is there a compulsory referral to child protection? What is that? What happens in that circumstances? The charts just sort of stops.
So to answer the second part of your question,
sorry.
What we would, my mind's gone blank now, sorry. So to answer the second part of your question, which was, can you just remind me of the question?
It's sort of, I'm concerned about the sort of links and the gaps that maybe your chart stops, that if a child is missing. If a child is missing or isn't seen, what kicks in at that point to make sure we don't lose that child?
So I'm sorry. Can you just change the question a little bit so I can understand it a little bit better?
Well, children missing in education.
Yeah.
Page 32. If not found, pupils' details uploaded as missing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say what happens.
Okay, so what we would do is when we get a referral from a stakeholder or a school to say that the child is missing, I will then go and do everything that I can reasonably to locate this child. There are occasions when, and it's very few and far between, that we're unable to locate where that child is. So we then update a database called School to School Systems, where we would have to upload that child to that system, where all authorities have got access to that. And then every so often a CME lead will go on to that database, have a little look through, and it could be that child is then in their authority, whereas then they would let that authority know. But we would always keep them open to us, so we will track them until there is always a time where we could locate them. That does take time sometimes, and yeah, we are aware, and in those circumstances we would inform Children's Services to work alongside us as well. Does that answer?
Well, it does, unless they're just not found. That's what I'm concerned about, is because although, as you say, they're few and far between,
yeah,
but we did have that case in Pembrokeshire a long time ago, but we all still remember it.
Yeah, of course, and we would always, if there's a case that comes up where we can't locate them, we would look to involve the police in that and Children's Services, and we would all work together to locate that child. And if it is that we can't locate them, or we haven't got any idea that they've possibly emigrated, or where we could kind of think this is what have happened here, we would look to open that then with Children's Services, and the police would become involved as well.
Thank you. Can I just sort of link that to if you are visiting a child and you're denied access? If you've never seen that child, what happens then? Thank you.
Sorry. I would make a referral, a DTR, to Children's Services and look to jointly visit with a family support worker from Children's Services or a social worker and follow through, with trying to actively engage that family. We are currently this has happened recently where a family or a father deregistered a child and then refused to engage with us. So after exhausting numerous attempts over a period of a few weeks of him trying to engage the father, I DTR'd. I did 3 separate home visits with a social worker where we both tried to engage the family, but again they were refusing to engage with either myself or children's services. So it's escalated, up to, the potential of, child protection arena now. So we work closely with children's services if we have safeguarding concerns and we can't actually, get to see it or have any engagement with a family.
Perfect answer, thank you. Sorry, I also, because Councillor Bond, Councillor Bond has left and she has put a quite detailed question, so I'm going to read that out. I'll need more better glasses. Okay. Please, can someone ask why the CME policy doesn't have an integrated impact assessment shared with the policy? Can we demonstrate that we are sure that all groups are treated equally, equitably, and we are meeting the corporate plan aims by completing the risk assessment? If it has been completed before, would it be useful to share with the policy so that the evidence that all factors have been considered is available? And it is in the chat in front of you if that was too much. Okay, thank you.
That's fine. Yes, apologies that there is no integrated impact assessment. So we will look at that. I would have to say that the policy is very much grounded in Welsh Government guidance, and therefore there would have been the expectation that it will have gone through those processes. But of course we will carry that out and it will be available when it's completed.
Thank you very much, and we'll put that in our feedback. Jan, would you like to come back in?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry that I thought that some others would be asking these questions, so I have got a few more. First of all, regarding free school meals, a high percentage of these young people are eligible for free school meals compared to normal school. I noticed 31% and 64% we don't know. This suggests obviously that there are families in need. Is there any means that we who will now be having to provide lunchtime meal as well? Is there any means that we've got of actually assisting? Can they have food vouchers or anything to cover the costs?
No, there is no financial subsidy available to EHE families. In initial conversations, that is something that that I stress quite clearly to families is when they deregister from mainstream school, they take on the full financial responsibility of all educational costs incurred and all resources, all learning activities, and that does include feeding the child full time as well at home. There isn't any transfer of free school meal funds.
That's not very good, is it? Really, for the child in question, it's not very good for the pressure on the family. So yeah, understand. Another question I had was private schools have had extra charges put on them, and we know that some families are struggling to pay annual fees. How have we had incidences of parents taking their children out of private schooling and self-educating? And if so, how many have we had?
I wouldn't be able to give you exact figures without checking our records, but it does happen where children are EHE'd from the private sector. But similarly, we have children coming out of mainstream going into private education as well. But I haven't got figures to give you at this point.
Okay, thank you. And just the final one, really, the one that I was expecting everybody to ask, really, is that I know that the funding ends at the 31st of March. How is it looking for next year?
Obviously, we are looking at our grants for next year, and at this point anticipate that it will continue, but we're anticipating that.
So no firm answer yet. Bids in though, yeah? Yeah, thank you. That's me done. Thank you.
Okay, can I thank everyone for this morning? It's been, I feel it's been really useful. We've had a really robust look at both the report and the policy. And can I just thank the officers for their time and energy and actually, you know, the bringing it to life really, because there were lots of things that I've learnt from reading both reports and sitting here this morning, so thank you very much. Okay. Do you want to leave the meeting now? Would that be okay? We're just... I think they do. Yeah, I do as well. So we're now going back to the agenda, and thank you very much. We're going to just briefly look at the forward work programme and action list.
Okay, I won't keep you long, members, but yeah, there's a couple of changes to the work programme since the agenda's been published. So next meeting we've got Disability Confident Pledge. That should have come to us a couple of months ago, but we had another item on the agenda that dropped off, and therefore we didn't hold the meeting just for the one report. But yeah, what you won't be seeing, but is confirmed for the 24th, is also corporate parenting strategy. That's got to go for decision, so that's sort of bumped some of the other items down a month because it's got a timescale for decision. So we'll have Jane Rogers and Diane Chorister, and you'll be doing pre-decision scrutiny on that.
So can I just check that's the 24th of February?
Yeah. Okay. So then that will push some of the other items further down. One that I haven't put on there, but it's sort of hanging in the air, is Gypsy and Travellers allocation policy. There's a smaller part of the policy that needs to be brought back. It's not as big as some of the previous scrutinies that have been done on this, but we're confirming with the Cabinet member and the officers the timescale for that. Okay.
31st of March?
Yes, well, those ones there, they're to be confirmed. Sure. I've sort of moved the youth service down and the public library strategy down, but to be honest, if the Gypsy and Traveller one comes in and is time sensitive, that would have to come in first, because the other items aren't time sensitive.
That's really helpful. Any comments from anybody present? Happy with that? Okay.
The Cabinet Forward Planner, that's for noting, as usual. We don't tend to go through that, but members should keep an eye on that. That lists all of the decisions that are going forward. So just keep an eye on that. If there's anything you wanted to raise, bring forward, or speak to officers about, it lists the report authors and so on.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to press the button. Finally, we've got the minutes of the last meeting. Can I get somebody to... Martin has moved a seconder as well, please. Got anybody? Oh, I can see Penny, sorry. I'm trying to look at myself. I'm trying to look in about 3 different places. So thank you very much. So can I just thank everybody for this morning, and see you all on the 10th of February. Thank you very, very much. I think it's been a really, really good meeting. So thanks all. Bye for now.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks.